Hey everybody, it's Professor Diffley. This is Philosophy 255, Ethics and Social Work, Human Services. So we're on Chapter 6. This is, again, goes with Chapter 5. So this is a continuation, looking a little bit further, deeper into it. So really the main topic, you'll notice this a shorter chapter as well, is value neutrality and imposing values. And so these are the main topics here is the goal of value neutrality and avoiding imposing your own values on your clients. So let's take a look here. So these are the traditional expectations of professional social workers and others in the human services. The biggest one is not to impose your personal values on clients. And this goes with self-determination, putting the client's interests first. They're the ones that's supposed to make the decision. So imposing your values is where you take what is important to you, your values, your morals, your ethics, and you force them upon your client, and you have them act the way you would want, or you choose to act. And so that's imposing. It's where you're forcing them to do it, not really giving them a choice. How would they do that? Excuse me, let me go back. How could this happen is, again, when they want to please you, where they... mostly when they want to please you because they're worried about it, they'll say whatever you want in order to make sure their benefits or other things. Not everybody, but this is how sometimes people view things. So again, your goal is not to impose your own values, personal values. And that's very important. There are societal values. We've talked about extreme ones, right? If you're dealing with substance abuse, right? Societal value is that I shouldn't be abusing them. Addiction is bad. It's harmful to many. And so the goal is to get them to kick it and not be addicts. That's a societal value. Personal values are more, again, your individual views. Think your religious beliefs, your world outlook. People are going to have different views than you, and you need to be comfortable with that. The other goal here is suspend judgment. So two traditional expectations: don't impose your personal values, and don't judge your clients' behaviors and actions, even when they go against your own values or even societal values. And so these are two major expectations: don't impose your values and suspend judgment about your clients' behaviors and actions, is what we're supposed to do here. We're going to get into whether or not that is truly possible, or if these are worthy goals to begin with. Just think about it. Think about how many times you judge people each day. And again, it could be even a fleeting thought in your mind. Think about if you're driving, you walk around and you see someone doing something, or someone driving poorly. You do judge them. You make that snap judgment in your head. Now, it doesn't always impact how you treat them, but it can, but nonetheless, that is there, and that is something that we have to think about here. So, again, not imposing your values. This goes to decision making. Again, we've talked about this in general. Clients' values have priority when making decisions. It's what the client wants to do. We're here to help them, guide them, but we don't make decisions for them. And again, it's because the client must make the decisions to own them. And we talked about that in the last chapter as well. Now, so one view here is that one of the ideas is that, things will work best when the client and the social worker, the professional and the client have the same values, right? So that could lead to the best outcomes. Why? I think that one's kind of obvious. The idea that they both are on the same page. They see the world the same. They see what they both want to achieve the same thing. They agree on everything. That's the ideal. I mean, in reality, how often you think this is going to happen in the real world? Probably not much at all. It could happen. It's definitely not impossible, but it's going to be rare. Just think about the diversity we have in the United States and the places you're going to be working. There is going to be very hard to find people that see the world exactly like you do, but it's the ideal. And so let's talk about your personal values. So there are going to be differences in how you see the world, what you believe in, what you feel, than your clients. So what does the code say about this? Well, the code says you should be aware of, the impact of your values on your clients' values, your own personal values, and cultural religious beliefs. All right. So what it's saying here is these are all things that are going to impact ethical decision making, right? So your own cultural, religious, and personal beliefs are going to impact what you see as ethical, and it's going to be different for other people, and that's just the way it is. So, but you have to be aware of this. Why aware? Because once you're aware of it, then you can deal with it, right? It's not subconscious. If you know that. Then you can try to push it aside. You could recognize it, say, yes, I do. This conflicts with my own views. However, I'm not going to let that win out here. I need to be open-minded. And you'll see that in this chapter. It talks about these are things that social workers need to have. Open-mindedness, really, comfortable with diversity, that sort of thing. And so you need to be aware of these and conflicts between your personal and professional values, right? I've mentioned this before, but if it's an extreme version, but if you are adamantly opposed to birth control or abortion, then you probably shouldn't go work for an abortion clinic or something like that, or an agency that is giving out birth control. Why? Because it goes against what you believe in. So don't put yourself in that position. You'd want to work for a company or agency that had the same values. That's going to make it easier. But you're going to have to know when there are these conflicts there, and that's going to create its own dilemma there. But again, you have to deal with them responsibly. That's what I was talking about before. That's where you've got to recognize your biases, your values, where they conflict. And once you recognize it and say it and point it out, then you could deal with it and say, now I'm going to make, again, that attempt not to let this impact me. And again, everything's going to involve value choices, right? What the values of the client are, yours, of society, all professional decisions, right? Is what the values are. Because remember, you are part social control agent, which I've mentioned before, where you're trying to get, for lack of a better way to explain, you're trying to get them to conform to what society deems as best. Because remember, they're coming to you because they have issues, they have problems of some kind, and you're there to help them fix it, is the goal. And so this is just from your book. This just, it shows you the a continuum. But I mean, this is pretty obvious, right? On one end, you have things that are completely unethical. Right, and again, use the idea abortion, family planning here. So that would be what you see as unethical. On the other end would be what you think is right, protecting human life. An agency that provides adults with information on assisted suicide, right? That would be maybe if you believe in protecting human life, you might not want to work for a company or an agency that is supporting, assisted suicide, that sort of thing. And then there's going to be some that are, you're sort of wishy-washy. They're not inherently wrong or right. You don't really come down on one side of them. But this is sort of how things work. So unethical, it's what you're going to disagree with. Ethical is what you're going to agree with. And then there are going to be some, though, that, you really don't have a say one way or the other. You don't have a feeling. And they are rare, but it does happen. And so, let's look at these factors and values that impact professional decisions here. And so, your professional decisions are going to be impacted by all these. Your personal values, or what the profession teaches you, right? What the profession holds to be true, right? And these are in the values in your code of ethics. For social workers, this is the code themselves. What society values, right? What they think is best. Yeah, so it's what society values, what they think is best for everyone. The majority believes there is best for everyone. Historical situation, that's going to, decisions that might have, what we mean is where you are in time, right? If we went back and looked at decisions, say, made in the 1950s, 1970s, what people then might have considered ethical might be different than what we do today. That's what we mean by the historical situation. And these things can impact others, right? Societal values. It's not that long ago that society definitely didn't protect gay, trans rights, those sort of things, LGBTQ rights. Now, however, it's a different time, and they do. So that's what we mean historical situation. They're going to be impacted by what's going on around, you in that time. And, again, these things change, right? We've gone from people adamantly trying to deprive. Oh, well, I mean, it still happens, unfortunately, but where there's no rights protected for gays and lesbians and others, but now they are, or at least there's attempts to, and so that's what we mean by the historical situation here. Let's go back to this, the gaps here. Now, the client social work. Again, we talked about this before. In the perfect world, you're going to have the same views as your client and everything will work great, but that's not going to happen. There often is a significant gap between the personal values of the helping professions and those who you're helping and the general population there. This view, it's like this, where people go into different fields. They are a self-selecting group, right? You're going to have a lot of people. It's not, everyone's not going to be all the same, but in certain fields, people will have certain worldviews. And that's usually what drove them to there, right? Especially if you're going into a helping profession, well, guess what you're going to value? Helping, right? People who didn't go into a helping profession aren't going to rank that as high. That's what we're talking about, right? So social workers are a group that want to give back to society, help people, help, for various reasons. That is going to drive you to this field. That is not what drives everybody to all fields, right? I'm guessing you don't become an accountant because you're trying to help people in the sense of how a social worker does, right? There's going to be different motivations there. So, these are what, according to studies, this is what social workers seem to value these things more than the general public. And it's up to you to decide whether it's true. But the importance of personal relationships. The argument is that social workers see this as more important than other industries, other professions. I think what they mean here is, again, that concept of what I was just talking about, of helping people, where that's your goal, right? If you're going into the stock market as a stock trader, I doubt it's because you want to help people. It's probably because you want to make money and you find that sort of life interesting and fun. But here, and you're not really interested in personal relationships. Here, though, this is what it's all about. Think about it. It's going to be you working with clients, an individual, a family, a group. So you do see that as important. Other things, service to others. Again, that's what we're talking about, helping others. Social justice. This means making up for society's wrongs, right? Helping the underprivileged, that sort of thing. Human rights, same thing. Sticking up for those whose human rights have been infringed upon. Is it certain sectors of society, as I said before, LGBTQ groups, is it women, is it religious? These are the types of things you're going to focus on. Client self-determination. The argument here is that the social workers, again, this is supposed to be one of your main goals, is to have clients have self-determination. So it's in there. Respect for diversity. Why? Because you're going to work with diverse populations, and again, we're going to suspend judgments, that sort of thing. You're going to believe in equality. That goes with the human rights, social justice, respect for diversity. There's the argument that this is what social workers believe in more than the general public. Now, whether that's true or not, I'm not really sure. Again, I'm in a sort of a helping profession here as a teacher, so people I work with see these things the same too. So it's hard for me to judge. Many of the people I know also, want these things too. So, but at least this is what your book is arguing, and what the studies say is that you're going to value these more than other people. And again, more comparisons here. These are some of the more views, again, of what a social worker values versus what the public does. Actually, I'm going to pick this up in the part 2, because I don't want to stop in the middle of this, because it's a pretty interesting list here. So we'll come back in part 2 of this to look at Chapter 6, to look at differences, a comparison against studies say what social workers value and what the public values. All right, be back in a sec.